I want to give other Native girls the tools to understand their positionality in literature in the literary world. I want them to understand how they can be empowered to write about themselves and whatever experiences they think are valid. Anything from Hello Kitty to, more serious matters like working through grief. I think all of it is valid. All of it is part of being a Native person. And I don't want them to feel pressured. Sometimes I did as a young poet to write only about certain things, and that was what would qualify you as like a Native writer. So Indian Girls Book Club has been something I've been dreaming about for a while. I've been teaching accessible literature workshops for Native youth, specifically youth of marginalized genders, for about 5 to 6 years. I started when I was a national student poet. I ran a workshop series at Sherman Indian School in Riverside, which is actually where my great-grandparents met back when it was a boarding school. And so I have been programming free literature workshops, author talks, programming, pop-up events kind of since then. And I just had a thought recently, having graduated from college, I had a lot of time on my hands to really commit to it and bring Indian Girls Book Club to life as like an entity. And so, it's something I would have loved as a young person. I wish that I had, Native people I could have connected with to talk about art and literature, because I grew up not knowing the wealth of Native authors that existed until later on, much later when I was in high school. There's no lack of talented Native authors is the thing. It's just who's making these reading lists, who's being centered in book clubs, who's looking for these stories and who's looking to amplify them. So we know from studies that have been done, for example, that seeing harmful representations of ourselves in literature and media has actual detriments on our mental health as young Native people. So for one, they get to center themselves in any stories that they're telling, and they get to see positive representations of themselves in literature. They can be, adventurers and superheroes. They don't have to just be some kind of tragic stereotype or narrative as they've been written by non-Native authors. Actually, one of my theses in college was to create a young writers program developed specifically to address Native college student retention, specifically in the arts and writing and higher education. And so that was like the research side of things, like how can we keep Native students writing and feeling encouraged rather than focusing on like deficits. And so, for example, I was the only Native person in the writing concentration in the English major at Yale. I was often the only person bringing Native literature to classrooms. The feedback has been, I think, phenomenal, given like we've only really launched for like a week and we have been able to buy like 300 books. Ariana Brown, who's a poet I love, did an unboxing video for us last night, and I was just watching it, and she opened this book by Joan Kane, and she was like, I've never read this before. And I got so emotional because I was like, I love introducing people to authors they've never read, especially Native authors. Eventually, I do want to explore, formalizing. That's part of the official launch, is like formalizing it as an organization. I have Nanaba, my friend, helps to run the events, so like, onboarding her officially as somebody to like, we're gonna have our first like launch event and like, start having like pop-up spaces again. And then for me, besides that, I'm just like writing.